Hello, Momentum Tribe. Spencer Combs here, and I'm going to share with you 3 strategies and a total of 14 tactics on how to raise revenue in your business. Now, the reason I can actually share this information is because we've helped business owners do well over $200 million in sales volume in the last few years. And I want to share with you just a few of some of the tactics and strategies that we've used to help them do that. So 3 major strategies. 1, you can raise the number of transactions. That's kind of the obvious one. 2, you can also raise the income amount per transaction. And 3, you can increase the number of times people come back through your process. So those are the 3 major strategies. Let's get down to business and break those down. Number 1, increase the number of transactions. Well, if we're going to increase the number of transactions, which is by far the most common way people like to increase their revenue, there's a few ways to do that. The number 1 way to do that, of course, is prospecting. And I'll tell you, prospecting is probably one of those words that most of us in business understand the concept, and we understand it's really pretty simple, and yet it's not the one that's the easiest because it takes a consistent amount of energy to pull that off. So prospecting, by definition, would be having more conversations with more people. If you're not actively and proactively finding new business, you're probably not going to increase the number of transactions you're going to be having, regardless of what business you're in. If you own a restaurant and we want more people to come in, how are we proactively going out and finding people to come in to your business? If you are selling a service like insurance or real estate or mortgage, if you're in that field, what are you doing to increase the number of people coming into your business, if you will? Whether that's storefront, whether that's an actual business in terms of brick and mortar, or whether it's online, what are you doing to drive traffic, if you will? The second tactic is marketing. And marketing is the one that most entrepreneurs really love to get involved with because it takes a bit of creativity to pull it off. And marketing, by definition, is the ability to pull people in, rather than where prospecting is you hunting, if you will. Marketing can be more of a fishing type activity. It could be more of an attraction. So with that being said, there's really 2 factors that I believe that helps create positive increase in revenue using the marketing tactic. So marketing involves 2 things, and that is consistency and content. So if you're going to have a tremendous amount of revenue come up by having more transactions, you're going to have to be consistent with your message. And if your sales cycle is longer, you may want to consider an even more consistent, well over time message. And 2, the content needs to match the people that you're going after. What are they looking for? So I would suggest, if you're struggling with getting responses from your marketing, do some homework on ad copy. Do some homework on how to write strong headlines that drive and attract people in to your conversation. That's what you're looking for. So marketing is number 2. Number 3 is networking. And networking being a simple statement, think about the vendors and people around you that could possibly bring in business to you. Another way of referring, or another word for that, of course, would be referrals. One of the largest organizations in the world is BNI. It's a network referral business, if you will. Business Networking International. If you're not a member of BNI and you want to have more business, you want to increase the number of transactions, that's one way to do it. Get into a BNI group and start giving and receiving referrals. Think about the people that the businesses, right? Think about the businesses that have a similar stream of conversation. I'll give you an example. If I'm selling, let's say my service is mortgages. Well, mortgage people, mortgage loan originators would do really, really well when they connect with, obviously, real estate agents, but also, what about insurance agents? What about financial services? Think about people that you could give referrals to, but also think about the people that would be in the stream of your ideal client, your ideal prospect, the person that's going to purchase. So number 3 is networking. I'm going to keep rolling through this because it's going to take us a while to get through all of these. And I hope, by the way, that you have got a piece of paper and a pen, because this is just going to keep flowing. And with 15 tactics, there's no way you can't raise your revenue if you don't take advantage of just a few. All right, number 4 and 5 really kind of go hand in hand, and yet they're at two different stations in terms of the process of sales. So if we're looking to create more transactions, the first thing I would tell you to do with tactic number 4 is raise the number of people that you convert to a conversation. Now this is, when we talk about lead generation, I'm looking right at this point, we're talking about demand generation as well. So let's say you talk to 10 people and you give out your card, you may be able to get one person to reach out to you or touch base with you somewhere down the road. Unfortunately, you've given that power out to them, and you'll never be able to reach out to them if you don't have their contact information. So if you want to raise your number of transactions and raise the number of the volume of activity you're doing, do a better job of converting the conversations into the next phase of your process. So if you have a short sales cycle, meaning it's like a storefront, they're coming in and they're coming out, then it may not be quite as relevant for you to raise this particular conversion rate. But if the longer the cycle becomes, though, the more imperative this becomes, because your nurture process is going to be more imperative. So you want to add more people into the front end of that funnel. So think about people who have a 90-day cycle of some sort, or maybe like insurance where it's just a week or two, and sometimes it can happen the same day. However, if I talk to 10 people, how many of those 10 do I actually get contact information with so I can follow up? Does that make sense? So 10 out of 10, maybe we're getting 10%, which is a pretty normal thing if you just do things on autopilot. But if you get purposeful about it, you can actually get 2 and 3 times more of a return, meaning 20 to 30% of the people you talk to, you actually engage with and then take them to the next phase of the conversation. So we can triple our income or triple our transactions just by doing a better job of that. Tactic 5 piggybacks off of that, because now that I've got these, let's say 3 people that come in, out of the 3, how many of those 3 am I actually converting into an actual transaction? So statistically speaking, if you didn't know this, 3% of the population is looking to buy specifically anything out there. So let me put it this way. If I had a room of 100 people, there's 3 people in the room that's probably looking to buy a pair of shoes. There's 3 people in the room looking to make a move, buy a house. There's 3 people in the room that are looking at franchise opportunities. There's a ton of different ways. They're shopping for insurance. They're shopping. They're actively looking. So 3%, you should be able, with 100 conversations, you're going to find 3 that are currently looking for whatever service you've got. If you don't have a 3% conversion rate on in the general sense, then you've got a bigger problem than you realize. Of that 100, though, there's another 7% that are open to the conversation. So if I take the 3% and the 7, that gives me 10. I'm hoping that you're keeping up with me on the math. This is going to make a lot of sense for you. If I have 10% of the population that is either wanting to buy something, whatever I've got, and 7% open to the conversation, that means there's 10% right off the bat of people that if I just, out of a numbers game, I could raise the whole thing by taking it from 10% to, let's say, 15% or 20%. How good am I at asking the right questions? How good am I at having those conversations? And questions, conversations, that is the key to raising the number of transactions by raising the conversion rate of people you talk to. So if you have enough presentations and you get good at converting, right, from 10% to 20%, and then go from 20% to 50%, you can see that we can exponentially grow. So if you're not measuring it, by the way, you're losing out, because once you measure it, you can actually find a way to increase it. It's one of the things we do as a coach, is figuring out what you're doing, then how do we increase that even more? So that's strategy number 1, which is increasing the number of transactions. That's the one most people like to talk about the most. Strategy number 2 is how do we increase the average value per transaction? So I'm going to give you 5 tactics on that one as well. Consider this. If I'm already doing, let's say, 100 transactions in a given time frame, whether that's You know, some people it's for a year. For some people that's in a week. Kind of depends on what industry you're in. If I'm doing 100, what if I could get 10% more, 20% more, 50% more by I can make more money off the same number of transactions. And that's what I'm referring to. So how do we do that? Well, one of the ways to do that is to actually create a grouping scenario. And by grouping, we can not only offer you this one product or service or program, if you will, I can give you this and this and this. It might be a little bit lower number, but at the same time, I'm actually going to raise the overall value in that transaction. Tactic number 2 is very similar in that we upsell. And by upsell, somebody wants to buy one particular product, we can help them upsell by getting them a little bit more. So let me talk about tactic 1 and 2 together for a moment and show you the difference. Tactic 1 would be adding on things. So it's really easy to talk about it with either like a hair salon or with a restaurant, small ticket items. I can group things. I can raise the average value per transaction or time we do a deal by offering products. Or if I'm a server, I can raise the whole thing up by just offering appetizers, giving suggestions on appetizers, pushing alcohol, right? So by the way, most restaurants make a lot of money off of alcohol. So if you want to raise your ticket price, you can just offer some alcohol. By the way, that also messes with people's inhibition or it changes their thinking process, their judgment, and they spend more money. If you didn't know about it or didn't think about it, that makes a difference. Desserts. You really need dessert? Most of the time, no. Then again, if I can get you to buy a $7 dessert on a dinner that was only going to cost me around $40, I've just increased almost by 25% on the whole ticket. Does that make sense? Where upselling is concerned, maybe I want to buy this food, and the server suggests that's good, but for $2 more, you can get this. That's upsell. You following that? So those are 2 ways right there. I'm not going to go any further, but you recognize there's 2 ways. Let me talk about the other 3. Number 3 is systematically target the type of purchaser in the price point that you want to go into. This is really important for people that get paid off of commission. So if you're in a commission-based business, you can systematically find people that are already in that price point. See, like real estate is a really easy one to talk about. Insurance is another one, and mortgages. Those are the 3 that's easy to talk about. Same for financial services. If you want better or more money per transaction, then you may want to raise the quality of people. So if I have an average home sales price of 200, I can start targeting using my marketing and my prospecting to find people that are in that 250 range. And by raising it to 250, I have just increased myself by 20% or more, 20, 25, somewhere in there. Does that make sense? So you can increase that. Now, the longer your sales cycle, the longer it may take. For insurance, think about this. How would you put yourself in a position to target people who have more things to insure? There's services out there, by the way, that'll help you find from public records that maybe they own a house, they also own a boat and an RV, right? So how do we put all that into one big? We can raise per person, per transaction. We can raise the amount. Okay. Number 4, the obvious one, raise prices. You ever thought about raising the prices? That doesn't have to be huge, but you can raise the amounts. As long as you can show value, raise the prices. And in some cases, it's only a little bit. So if you raise it by 10%, 15%, 20%, and you do that over the course of 100 transactions, you're going to exponentially change the bottom line. Number 5 is about, if you're not going to raise the price because raising the price is going to be a problem for the consumer, then maybe we need to actually lower what we're giving. I'll give you an actual example of that. Recently, when we saw the market change and we had such a challenge when we had the recession that we just came out of, did you notice that certain items of food actually were lowered, or the price point stayed the same? Because the public's perception of that, they're not going to pay more just because your prices are going up, right? The cost of the good for you is going up, but we can't pass it to the consumer. So what did most businesses do? Take a look at dog food. Dog food used to come in 50-pound bags. But if you look, they didn't change the price, but they lowered the amount of dog food in the bag. So that automatically increases their value per transaction. Because if I took out 4 pounds of dog food out of thousands and thousands of thousands of pounds, I'm going to increase what I'm going to make per transaction. Now, that may or may not work for your industry specifically, but there's 5 different tactics right there. All right, strategy number 3 is increase the frequency by customer, meaning each customer, how do I get them to come back more often? We can raise the number or raise the revenue stream just by changing how often someone does business with us. So, 4 tactics. Yep, I got 4 written down here. Number 1, what are you doing to maintain some people will call it a database. What are you doing to maintain communication with all the people you've got? You can increase the number of times people come through by doing one thing, and that's maintaining a consistent form of education to the people that you do business with. Quite frankly, most people out of sight, out of mind. Envision the opportunity where if you had, let's say, I just mentioned this to an insurance agent the other day. Let's say there's a massive storm coming in to your town and you got clients, right? You got insurance customers all over the place. Wouldn't it be cool for you to send out a message prior in advance, either through a mass phone call, or even you could do personal calls if you had the labor force to pull that off, email, whatever, that said, hey, this is coming. Here's how to get prepared. Here's some tips on that, and here's how to reach us if and when anything happens. Right? That's huge. By having that connection, you're going to create additional times that they come through. Now, I know with insurance, that sounds a little weird because you can't, they're going by X number of months and you buy a policy. Think about this from like a restaurant standpoint, though. How are you keeping up with your people? If you have the average customer comes in 4 times a year, meaning every 3 months or so, what if you could get them to come in every 6 weeks? We've doubled the number of times somebody comes through. And if they on average spend $50, well, that would have been normally $200. We just went from $200 to $400. $400 by getting the same person to come in more often in the year. Does that make sense? So one of the ways to do that, of course, is to educate them, keep them up to date. Some of these other tactics are partly involved in that same conversation. So number 2, loyalty programs. You could gamify it in some way. I've seen people actually do where, think about this for a second, like car dealerships that have loyalty programs. You can also do where points, right? That's Starbucks has a point system that's designed to get you to come back more often, right? What could you do to get people more engaged to come back in and do more business with you more often? By the way, the education piece, like if you're a financial advisor of some sort, you're in financial services, if you educate people, you might find out there's a new opportunity. You want to share the educate them, and then have them come back in, right? So number 3, special events. Some people call it sales. JCPenney recently changed, a couple of years ago, they changed up their whole process. They did away with sales. Well, everything plummeted. Even though people know that the sales are hype because the prices are high and they just bring the sales in, people love to go to special events. So if you're selling something like an actual retail item, that will create an opportunity for people to come back in. They'll do more business with you. Special events also could be client events and things where you get the opportunity to talk to them and get them to come back in. Fair enough? Number 4 is personal touches. And personal touches could be anything from birthday cards, actually handwritten. It could be just a Facebook touch. Personal touches can go a very long way when you're looking to help people sell or buy whatever it is they're going to do, right? So that's tactic number 4. I just gave you 14 different tactics out of 3 strategies. My question to you is going to be, which one of those are you going to use? And if you really wanted to exponentially grow the whole thing, imagine what it would do to your business and to your revenue stream if you increase the number of sales, you also increase the volume or the amount of money you make per transaction, and then on top of that, you leveraged your entire database and all the people you know to get them to come back through more often. What kind of a rapid increase could you have if you did all of that? Most business owners constantly are looking for ways to incrementally grow their business, and that's okay. As long as incremental gains are being stacked and you're getting the compound effect. If not, you're just going to keep getting a little bit more every year. If you want to have exponential growth, you stack all this stuff up, you measure it, you keep on top of it, and you make it happen. That's one of the things we do as a coach, is help people recognize those patterns. We find ways to get in there and accelerate everything. So if you've got good things going on, I'm here to help accelerate what you've got going on. Fair enough? If you want more information from me, you can always go to spencercombs.com. There's a ton of information there for you that will help you, as well as ways for you to get in touch with me. All my contact information is down at the bottom. Again, I'm Spencer Combs. Thrilled that you're here, part of the Momentum Tribe, and we are looking forward to helping you keep well and keep moving forward.